Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. So today we're going to talk about C-section versus a vaginal delivery. I've had 3 births. I've had 1 vaginal and 2 C-sections. 1 C-section was an emergency C-section and the other one was a scheduled C-section. So I feel like I got a little taste of everything, pretty much. I know that this experience is different for everybody. Everybody has a different kind of birth. Everybody has a different kind of birth experience. I'm not gonna talk about the trauma from my first birth. I'm specifically only gonna talk about the birth experience in itself. I'm not gonna talk about babies or afterbirth or anything like that, other than the birth and recovery or like healing process, basically. In honor of today's video, I am wearing my mama shirt that I got made by Cassie's Handmade Shop. Made me a custom Mommy and Me boho rainbow set. I'll put a picture right here of this cute little outfit that she made for my daughter Melina and the blanket as well. So for Mother's Day this year, we were able to twin and take a really cute picture together. I'll put her Instagram handle right here. If you're thinking of getting anything custom made, message her. I promise you, you will not be disappointed. She is amazing at what she does. Okay, let's get into these dirty details. So to start off with my first delivery, I had a vaginal delivery. So my water broke around 2 o'clock. I didn't know that it broke. It wasn't like a gush of water. It was like little drops throughout the day and I wasn't sure if it was just extra discharge. TMI, I'm gonna go into a lot of detail in this video. So it was more so drops throughout the whole day. So I wasn't sure that my water had broken until I did the little test that they tell you to do, which is lay down for 15 minutes. And if you stand up and water comes out immediately, then chances are your water broke. So I did that around 7 hours later. I got to the hospital, they checked me, they do like a little swab inside of there, and if that little stick turns a different color, then that means your water broke. So of course mine said that my water broke. So my labor technically started around 9 o'clock and I was induced because my water broke, but I wasn't in active labor yet. And I wanted to go natural as long as I could in hopes that I was gonna have a fast delivery and I was able to do the whole thing naturally. But 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning came around and I was exhausted. My contractions were all in my lower back. So there's 2 types of contractions that you can get. You can get lower back contractions or you can get the tightening of the stomach. I've experienced both, but with this specific pregnancy, I only got lower back contractions. So Tommy was like going in on my lower back, like massaging it really, really hard during every contraction, and that helped. But we were both exhausted by 5 o'clock and I was like, I can't do this. I need to take a nap. How am I supposed to push a baby out? I can't even keep my eyes open and I'm in this much pain. So I begged for the epidural. I got the epidural and I was able to take a nap. It wasn't a long nap. It was probably like maybe 2 hours, 3 hours long. As soon as I got the epidural, everything was fine. I was getting contractions, things were moving along, which was great. But around 10, 11 o'clock, the epidural started wearing off on me. I only had it in me for maybe like 6 hours and I sure was clicking that button, give me more, but it was wearing off on me and they checked me again and I was at 10 centimeters, so it was time to push. By the time I started pushing, my epidural was completely wore off, so I felt everything. So I was pushing as hard as I possibly could and it still took me 2 hours to push her out. I didn't feel any tearing. I felt more of like a burning sensation when she was coming out, but I didn't know how badly I had torn until afterwards. So once they took the baby, they took her to the NICU. The nurse came up to me and she said, we're gonna have to take you into surgery to stitch up where you have torn. And I was like, oh my gosh, it's that bad? And she was like, you have a 2nd degree tear, which there's 4 degrees. So my second one, I didn't think was bad. I was like, oh, it's just a second one. I mean, could have been worse. It could have been a 3rd, it could have been a 4th. But the way that I tore, it's called a perineal tear. Not sure if I'm pronouncing that right, but I'm gonna post a picture of what it looks like. And I also had an internal tear. So I had a tear on the side of my lip, as you will call it. So it was almost like it was hanging off. I'm getting into real details, guys. Like, I'm being honest and completely raw. It was almost as if the one side was like ripped off. And then the tear continued inside of there. So I had to get 2 stitches on the outside to fix that thing back up and put it back together. But I also had to get 8 stitches internally, and that's why 4 hours later, they brought me into a surgery room. They laid me down, spread me open as if I was about to give birth again, and they had to go in there and manually stitch everything up inside that I had torn. Man, that hurt. All I remember is the next day, I was like, okay, so it's still a little bit numb down there, but I went down and I looked at it with the mirror and I touched it and I was like, oh my gosh, it's broken. I was like, this can't be happening. The swelling was so bad. It was literally swelling on one side and the other side was normal. But the side that was swelling was the side that they had to stitch back together, basically. And I was so worried that it was never gonna go back to normal again, which 3 years later, Thank you, Jesus. It went back to normal. You can't even tell. You can't even see the stitching. Everything looks as if nothing ever happened. But where it got me, the internal stitching still would hurt me even 2 years later. I had so much pain. If I stood up in one single spot for more than 2 minutes, it hurt so bad. It was like a stinging, it was like a burning sensation inside. And this happened even a year after. It didn't just go away after a few months after my outside one healed. This pain in the inside stayed with me for like almost 2 years. I'm not even gonna lie. If I stood still for more than 2 minutes, it hurt. Whenever I would be intimate with my husband, it would hurt, which sucked. Even after we would do it, if I would try to stand up and go somewhere and do something and be walking around, I couldn't. I would be hunched over. The pressure of everything like hitting against it made me have to sit down. I had to sit down. That was the only way to relieve the pressure, to relieve the pain. And that continued on with me for about 2 years until, I want to say until after Ezekiel was born. My vaginal delivery itself was fine. Pushing her out wasn't bad. None of that was bad. It was the aftermath because of how badly I tore. So that ended up being one of the reasons why I was never going to do a vaginal delivery ever again. All right, so let's talk about my C-section. So for my second birth, I had an emergency C-section. My water broke at 37 weeks with him. It wasn't because he was like super heavy or anything, he weighed 7 pounds, but because my water broke with the first one, the chances of your water breaking again are high. And this time it was an actual gush of water that ended up going all over our bed. I knew right away that I had to go to the hospital. So within 15 minutes, I was in the hospital. Then as soon as I got there, they did that same exact check. They went in there, they swabbed me, make sure that my water was broken. It was, but because of what happened to me before in my first pregnancy, which I won't go into in depth in this video. If you know, you know, and if not, check out This Is Ariya's War video. Because of what happened to me before, they wanted to take the baby out as soon as possible. From the moment that I got there to the time that the baby came out, it was 2 hours later. I gave birth in 2 hours this time. It was, my water broke, I was in the hospital, they did all the pre-prep surgery stuff, and then boom, the baby was out. Like, it was insanely fast. I had no time for me to wrap around what the heck was going on. This experience, to be honest, was so much better than my first one. Now I had to deal with the postpartum of having a C-section. My C-section incision is not large, so it's about this big. So when I went in for the C-section, Tommy didn't go in with me right away. So you go in first, and then the nurse holds you while they put in the epidural, and you can't move. So the nurse did a really good job at holding me still, but for whatever reason, I had the chills. Like, I was shaking so hard because I was freezing. It's very cold in the operating room. So the nurse was holding me, like, I got the epidural in, I laid down, they put like a warming blanket on you, but they also tie your hands up like this. So when you are laying down, from the time that they put the epidural in you to the time that the baby gets there, it's actually pretty fast. When they cut you up, it's like 10 minutes, and then the baby was born. After the baby's born, Tommy got to cut the umbilical cord, and then he ended up leaving the room with him while I had to lay there for another hour, hour and a half until they stitched me back up. But I'm grateful that they do take their time in stitching you back up. The way that they stitch you will have an effect on how well your scar will heal and how well it'll look like over time. But besides the scar, my healing process for my second C-section, I want to tell you, within 3 weeks, I was feeling fine. I didn't feel no pain down there. I didn't feel any pain around my incision. You don't bleed as much with a C-section as you do with the vaginal. I feel like with the vaginal, I was bleeding for like 6 weeks. For the C-section, I bled for like 5 days. And then after that, I didn't get my period until maybe like 2 months later. I don't really like taking medicine other than like Tylenol, Motrin, and stuff like that. So I didn't want to take the Percocets that they had prescribed to me. So the best advice that the doctor gave me, and the best advice that I could give you, is if you don't like taking that heavy medicine like that, I recommend setting an alarm clock on your phone for every 6 hours to take the 600 milligrams of Motrin. That worked wonders on me. I never had to take the stronger medicine. And when I tell you, within 3-4 days after the surgery, I was walking perfectly fine. It was as if I didn't just give birth 3 days ago, which was a completely different experience than my first time around, because I felt like I was bedbound forever. It was a whole different experience. I wish my third one was like that too, but it wasn't. So baby number 3. I got pregnant with Milena when Zeke was 11 months old. I didn't even give my body a whole year to heal, a whole year to recuperate after being pregnant for 2 years before that. If you didn't know, I had 3 babies in 3 years basically. But Milena was an accident. I say accident because we weren't planning it, but obviously she was meant to be here, and I'm glad that it all happened the way that it happened. So with Milena, because of my first experience and because of my second experience, I chose to do a C-section again. With my third C-section, this one was scheduled. So I had a scheduled C-section at 39 weeks, which was great. I swore that she was gonna come before then, but she ended up not coming before then. She was my smallest baby. And even though she was my smallest baby, she gave me the most stretch marks around my stomach, and they cut my C-section scar bigger than the first time, which made no sense because I really liked that it was this small. Now it's a little bit bigger. It's probably like an inch bigger. I went in on the 28th in the morning at 7 o'clock, walked in there and I was like, hey, I'm here for my C-section. And they were like, okay, great. Here's your room. Wipe yourself with the sterilizing wipes, which is just basically like almost look like hand sanitizer wipes, and you just wipe your whole body, which is something that you do before surgery. But because my second one was an emergency, they didn't have time to do that on me. But this time around, I had to do it the night before and the morning of. Literally, I just had to sit there until it was my turn to go into the operating room, which didn't take long. It was probably like an hour. So me and Tommy were just there, we're talking. Can't believe we're literally about to have a baby in our arms in like 15 minutes, which is crazy because in any normal delivery, you don't know when the baby's gonna come. In this case, I knew exactly when the baby was gonna come, which is a pretty cool experience. The nurse was so nice. It just so happened to be her last day, so she took really good care of me. She went in there with me, that did the exact same steps, which was had me sit down, she held me, and they put the epidural in. This time around, I wasn't cold, I was overheating, which is so weird. It was like complete opposite experience. I was laying there and they had put that warming blanket on my chest. I felt like I was gonna pass out because of how hot I was. I didn't throw up this time on the table, thank God. I did throw up afterwards though. But when I was on the table, as soon as I laid there, Tommy was sitting right next to me. Elena was out in 10 minutes, and then Tommy took her and left me again while I had to lay there for another hour and a half to get stitched up, basically. So after I got all stitched up, I went back to the room and I felt it this time. I felt all around my incision was hurting so bad, which was so weird because that didn't happen to me the second time. And my stomach was so bloated. I had a hard time using the bathroom. So now they changed it. You don't have to go number 2 to leave. All you have to do is just pass gas. But my stomach, it was huge. And whenever they would come in there and press on my stomach, it hurt so bad and I couldn't use the bathroom. They gave me different types of stool softeners. They even gave me this warm juice concoction that I had to drink that supposedly was gonna help me too. He gave me everything possible and I didn't use the bathroom for 36 hours after labor. My stomach hurt so bad. But when I finally used the bathroom, thank you Jesus, it felt so good. This time around I was walking slanted, holding on to my scar. I did the belly band to keep everything intact, which that helped a lot too, making it like really tight. Because after the surgery, if you laugh, your stomach goes like this. It like jiggles with like every little laugh. It feels so weird. I was in so much pain this time and I just chalked it up to it being my second C-section and for it being so close to my other birth that I didn't really give my body enough time to heal, and then my scar was basically cut back open again. Within the first 2 or 3 weeks after giving birth, I was walking around just fine as if I didn't just have a baby, which was great. So overall, if it's a debate whether I preferred C-section or a vaginal, I will take a C-section any day over what I had to experience when I gave birth vaginally, but only because of the way that I tore, not because of the birth experience of me pushing her out. That was great. The fact that it took me 2 years to heal from it versus 2 weeks of my C-section, I'm gonna take the 2 weeks. But everybody's birth is different. Everybody's birth experience is different. There's so many things that can go wrong in both vaginal and C-section, but I thank God that for my C-sections at least, they were great, they were smooth, and the recovery was so much better to me. I'm curious, which one do you prefer? Do you prefer a vaginal delivery? Do you prefer a C-section delivery? Or if you haven't given birth yet, which one are you most anxious for? Do you want to go for natural? Do you want the epidural? I knew going in that I really wanted to go natural, but if I had to take the epidural, I'm gonna take the epidural. I'm not gonna torture myself. Thank you guys for watching. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a comment down below. I am curious on which one you prefer, whether you prefer a C-section or whether you prefer a vaginal delivery. As always, I appreciate you guys for your love and support, and I'll see you guys in my next video.